Human history is often remembered through the monuments we built, the empires we formed, and the breakthroughs that shaped civilization. But hidden beneath all of that progress is another story. A story about what societies feared, what they valued, and how far they were willing to go to protect their sense of order. Today, we travel through centuries and across continents to examine the punishments that became performances, the methods that were crafted not just to end a life, but to send a message. These were not acts of cruelty done in secret. They were carried out, publicly, with legal approval, often with audiences who believed they were witnessing justice. And to understand them, we must place ourselves where they once stood. Our journey begins in Renaissance Europe, in a dim stone chamber that smells faintly of iron, sweat, and burning oil. This was where confessions were extracted, not always from guilty people, but from anyone who hesitated long enough to raise suspicion. When simple questioning failed, interrogators reached for a device known as the iron boot. At first glance, it appeared simple, a set of heavy metal casings designed to clamp around the lower legs. But its purpose was anything but simple. Once the victim's legs were secured inside, executioners hammered wooden or iron wedges between the shin and the inner walls of the boot. Each strike compressed bones and tore muscle fibers, forcing splinters outward and crushing the leg from the inside. Some versions added heated coals placed beneath the metal, turning the device into both furnace and vice. Victims survived, sometimes for life, but their legs were never the same again. This wasn't only about pain, it was about breaking a person's resistance, forcing words from their throat that the state demanded to hear. From Europe, we move to ancient Rome, where the value of family was so sacred that violating it was seen as a crime against the cosmos. The punishment for killing a parent, known as poena culi, reflected this belief. The condemned was sewn into a large leather sack, along with animals the Romans believed represented chaos: a snake, a dog, a monkey, and a rooster. Once the sack was tied shut, it was thrown into a river. Inside, panic overwhelmed every creature trapped within. The man or woman sentenced to this fate did not simply drown. They were attacked, bitten, clawed, and suffocated in total darkness. Roman lawmakers felt that someone who destroyed their own blood did not deserve to die among civilized people, or even under open sky. The chaos inside the sack symbolized the disorder the criminal had brought into the world. Centuries later in France, punishment evolved into a ritual of public demonstration. The breaking wheel, one of Europe's most feared execution methods, was reserved for those who committed crimes seen as moral corruption, including parricide. The condemned was tied lengthwise across a large wheel, their limbs stretched wide. Executioners wielded iron clubs, striking bone after bone with calculated force. The intention wasn't to kill immediately. Instead, limbs were shattered in a sequence designed to prolong agony and prevent a quick end. Sometimes the body was woven through the spokes and mounted on a post, the person left alive for hours or even days, exposed to the elements. Townspeople walked by, witnessing the slow collapse of a human form as sunlight, cold, and exhaustion finished what the wheel began. It was a method designed to make the body a warning. In China's imperial era, the state crafted a punishment that became infamous around the world: lingxi, or death by 1,000 cuts. It was reserved for crimes the government considered catastrophic: treason, severe rebellion, or actions that threatened the stability of the dynasty. The condemned was tied to a wooden frame in a public square. An executioner then delivered cuts in a specific order, starting with shallow slices along the arms and legs. Arteries were avoided intentionally to extend consciousness. Over time, skin and muscle were removed in stages, revealing tissue and bone. The final cuts were often given to the face, preserving recognition until the very end. The act was meant to demonstrate the slow dismantling of someone who had, in the state's eyes, dismantled society. Historical records suggest that, depending on the era, the final death blow was sometimes delayed until the crowd had fully witnessed the spectacle. Travel south to the Ottoman Empire, and punishment begins to take a vertical shape. Impalement, used for severe crimes such as desertion, was one of the most feared executions in the region. The condemned was raised above a sharpened wooden stake and slowly lowered onto it. The point entered the body with controlled pressure. Contrary to myths, the stake was often angled to avoid immediate damage to vital organs. The intention was endurance. Some victims survived for hours, others for much longer, as the stake gradually passed through the body. Witnesses described days of slow movement, every shift of weight causing deeper penetration. For the Ottomans, the spectacle was meant to uphold discipline within the ranks and demonstrate the consequence of betraying military unity. Into the prisons of medieval France. Castles of the era were designed not only for defense, but also for containment. Among the darkest structures was the oubliette, named after the French word meaning to forget. This was a vertical shaft carved into the stone floor, too smooth to climb and too narrow to sit comfortably. Prisoners were lowered in and abandoned. Some shafts ended in dry pits, others ended in sewage. There was no goal of execution and no schedule of release. The purpose was disappearance. Days blended into weeks as hunger, thirst, darkness, and isolation wore down the human psyche. Many prisoners died of dehydration. Others descended into madness long before their bodies failed. Their remains stayed where they fell, hidden from the world above. In Persia, a different kind of spectacle emerged. Execution by sawing. The condemned was hung upside down, legs spread apart to allow blood flow to the brain and prolong consciousness. Executioners then placed a long saw at the groin and began cutting downward, using their own synchronized rhythm to guide the blade through muscle, bone, and cartilage. Gravity did much of the work, keeping the victim aware for far longer than nature would normally allow. This method was used for crimes that threatened religious or political order, and although rarely documented in graphic detail, its existence reflects a belief that some offenses required not just death, but demonstration. Across the sea in England, during the 16th century, the most severe punishment awaited those accused of treason, to be hanged, drawn, and quartered. The process began with a public dragging, the condemned tied behind a horse and pulled through crowded streets. At the execution site, they were hanged, but cut down before death. Next came disembowelment, performed with deliberate slowness. Organs were removed while the victim remained conscious, each movement showcasing the gravity of disloyalty. Finally, the head was severed, and the body divided into 4 parts, each sent to a different part of the kingdom as a warning. This elaborate ritual reveals how deeply monarchy valued loyalty and how execution could become political theater. In ancient Greece, innovation took a different form. The brazen bull, conceived by the engineer Piraeus, was a hollow bronze statue shaped like a bull. Victims were locked inside, and a fire was lit beneath the metal. As the bronze heated, the interior became an oven, slowly roasting the person trapped inside. The structure included a system of tubes designed to convert screams into sounds resembling a bull's roar. It was a chilling fusion of engineering and cruelty, illustrating how creativity could be weaponized. Our final journey takes us deep into Southeast Asia, where bamboo, one of nature's most resilient plants, became a tool of execution. In this method, the condemned was tied over young bamboo shoots that had been sharpened to needle-like points. Bamboo grows rapidly, sometimes several inches per day, and with remarkable strength. Over hours and days, the shoots pierced skin, pushed through muscle, and emerged through the torso. The victim remained pinned in place, as nature itself advanced relentlessly upward. Pain came not from sudden violence, but from gradual, unstoppable growth, a reminder that the environment could become a silent participant in punishment. Today, as we look back on these punishments, we confront unsettling truths about human nature. Civilizations that built libraries, invented mathematics, and created masterpieces were the same ones that engineered these agonizing ends. Progress and cruelty existed side by side, each shaped by fear, power, and belief. If you want to watch this type of historical interesting story, then subscribe to our channel for the next video. Thanks for watching.